And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, joined as always, when she's not on vacation, Carla, my co host extraordinaire. And so I'm going to do something a little different tonight, and it's a surprise to Carla. I'm going to let Carla introduce our guest.
So tonight we have Tracy Mays from the Wandering Soul Paranormal. She's going to be with us tonight and talk to us about all her adventures and how she got where she's at today. Go ahead,
Hello,
Tracy.
guys. Hello.
Hello.
You know, Carla, I love how you had to read your notes when the team name is underneath her photo.
Yeah, in like 4 font. But thanks.
Hi, Catherine.
Hey,
So,
Kat.
Tracy, tell us some about you.
How did you get into this?
Well, I want to believe it's how everybody does and kind of fell into it. Uh, when I was younger, I always had a fascination with the afterlife and paranormal, and it's pretty much because certain situations like when my grandmother passed, I saw her, or um, we would go on a road trip, and I remember seeing like a horse and buggy go by, and my parents not see it. So different things like that. And then as I grew up, it was begging my parents to let me go to cemeteries and be able to read the tombstones because I wanted to know who they were. My favorites were with the pictures, and with the very long epitaphs on the graves. So I really kind of went away from it, more so in high school. It was more of like ignoring it. Um, every now and then it would come up, and then when I lost my mom is when things really started getting a little more intense for me, to where it was like I felt things, and it was somebody who I didn't even know them. I think I was on TikTok, and you know how you cruise through the lives, and she was like, your mom wants you to start listening to yourself. And she just kind of made me listen a little harder. And I want to say about 2 years ago, I started more so diving into the history of where I live, and then trying to help historical buildings and the people who own those buildings, by bringing their stories to life. So that's kind of a abridged version of how I got to be where I am now.
Wow.
I gotta say, I can only picture your parents' faces when they're like, "So do you want to go to the park? No, let's go to the cemetery."
Yeah. And my dad especially, because my dad is like super like level-headed. He worked for General Motors for like 30 years and just as grounded as he could be. But literally, the man would find me a cemetery. Any vacation we went on, he made sure I got a cemetery in my path. So,
That's so cool.
and now, I am much, much older now. And even though sometimes we'll go to our family reunions together, we'll pull off into a cemetery, and I'll look at him and I'm like, "Oh, Dad, you know what I like."
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
listening to you talk about the history, that's kind of that's kind of the path I went down for the longest time. I wasn't so wrapped up in history during school times back in the day, but then I just started really wanting to know the more into the paranormal I got, the more I wanted to know the history, the people, where did everything start, what happened there, and it's like an obsession.
Yeah, it's definitely it's like those books. I don't know if y'all ever read them, but it was the Choose Your Own Adventure books. Yeah, there
Love
you
those.
go.
I could
I
never
love those
finish
books.
those. I always ended up dead, but I would love to.
Well, that's exactly what, because you start with a grave, and you're like, okay, who were you? And then you dive into who they are. And I even went as far as that ancestry.com, just
Yes.
to find
Yeah.
who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because even here in town, I do a historical walking tour before investigations, because I want people to understand who they're talking to, give them some insight of their lives here in town. So I definitely like that. I like being able to, before I investigate, knowing everything I can about who I'm actually talking to. It's for me, it's like those books. Like, you pick a person and you follow all the steps, and then you end up at the investigation location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it helps you communicate, I think, because then you have at least something to relate to.
Yeah, exactly. To understand of communication with them, instead of just, I don't know, you're here in Cleburne and you're chatting up about, British tea, and it's like you don't get on that same
Yeah.
basis of what they went through. So for me, it's more so, it doesn't mean it doesn't veer to the far left as soon as you're talking to them, but at least you've got that.
So is that what led you to buy and restore the Dillon Depot, or what's the story
So
behind that?
uh, that's an interesting story. So I don't own the Dillon Depot.
Oh,
A man by the name of Dan Roberts, who is a train aficionado. Um, Mr. Dan, yes, a very sweet old man, owns the Chafin, which is over 100-year-old restaurant here. He also owns the bus depot, which was the first Greyhound bus depot here in town. And then his father worked the railroads, and he's always loved trains. So what he did is he bought the building, uh, painstakingly restored it, because it took him a year and a half to restore it, and it's filled with train memorabilia. And I happened to walk in one day, and it was like fate, because I walked in and he just started talking. I was like, this is an amazing building. And he goes, oh, it's haunted. I said, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, upstairs. There's an apartment upstairs and it's haunted. You want to see it? And I said, yeah. So I went upstairs and he let me go upstairs by myself. And I came back down, and I must have had this like glass side look to me. And I told him, I said, if you let me help you, I will bring people to you to help you pay for renovations on this place. And he's like, when do you want to start? And I'm like, this is insane to me. Like, I can't believe this right now.
oh,
So, ever since then, it's been about 3 months now that we've been doing this. And the first month it was just me investigating, because I want to know exactly what I was dealing with, me and my team. And uh, after that, I started posting it just to kind of, I didn't want it to be, I wanted to kind of vet as much as I could who was coming in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I posted it on, I think it was the Texas Paranormal page, and that's where I've gotten a lot of people who've been interested. And it's been a wonderful network of just very positive people who are truly interested. And it's gone very well. All the groups that I've gotten to come through have been the most amazing people, just full of knowledge, who have had like 15, 20 years of investigating experience. And the equipment just blows my mind, some of the equipment that they bring. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm a 5-year-old playing with the big kids, But yeah, that's how the Dillon Depot started. Now during the day, it is a ice cream parlor. He makes homemade ice cream. The best Bluebell can't even hold a match to this ice cream.
This is good to know.
Yeah, it's I tell everybody who's coming to investigate, hey, we do a historic walking tour at 7, but come by 6 and get you some ice cream. And the Dr. Pepper ice cream is like you're drinking just straight Dr. Pepper. It's crazy good. What a lot of people don't realize and see and Mr. Dan tells me to keep it kind of on the DL because he doesn't want it to overshadow his train business. But he's the one he's the loudmouth. He's like, she's the Ghostbuster over there. Go ask her about the Ghostbust. And I'm like, I'm not ghost busting, Mr. Dan. I'm trying to keep them around. I don't want to bust them. So he's the big mouth of the situation. But the funny thing is, and I like to tell people when we're doing the investigation, so the funeral home is in 2 parts. In the 1940s, it was just a house, basically. The family lived upstairs, and downstairs is where they viewed the bodies, and the embalming room was at. And I laugh. It's really not funny. It's a completely different building because he renovated it. But that's where he makes the ice cream, is in the embalming room.
Nice.
And every time I tell it,
extra that flavors it.
Yeah. I'm like, every time I'm like, oh, that's the clean room, but it was the embalming room. So I laugh every time I tell that story. I'm like, maybe I should think about that. But he makes, like I said, he malts and floats and
oh my gosh,
huge trains.
Delicious.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And he's got this big Dr. Pepper truck that I take everybody's pictures in front of. And he painstakingly renovated that truck to bring it to where it is today. So he's a aficionado of history, and he's lived in this area his whole life.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's why we get along so well. We see eye to eye when it comes to preserving historical places.
So tell us more about your tour.
So my historical tour started very, very small. And I would dress up, and in the summer it was awful, but 1800s gear, to where I had the hoop skirts and the petty skirts.
Nice.
And, ooh, talk about hot. I had ass packs attached to my skirts because it was so hot. But we walk around downtown Cleburne, and it's, I should say, historic downtown Cleburne. And these stories that I have gotten, some of them were told to me, and then I went to the local library and read literally for the past year. I think I've gotten up to like 1940. But all the newspapers I could find, I just started reading to make those connections. So I even have like the proof like on my thing to where I'm like, hey, if y'all really want to know, look, here's the newspaper clipping. Because for me, it's important. I want, like I said, I used to work for Texas Parks and Wildlife. I worked at Dinosaur Valley State Park.
Oh, nice.
And if you get one of those dinosaurs wrong, when I say a 5-year-old calls you out, they will call you out. So I make sure that I either say, okay, this is hearsay, or I have proof. And if y'all want to see it, here it is. So it's a good hour and a half long walking tour. I tell the stories at the locations. I tell there was 11 legal hangings in Cleburne, but I only tell 2 of the stories because one, I know he's definitely innocent, and then the other one was just deserved it. So we talk about those 2, and then we droll over the jail because I'm trying so hard. Every time I get so close to the person who owns the jail, it's like a step back. So I am looking into titles now to try to find who owns the jail. But it's an interesting walking tour. And when I chat with the people afterwards, because for me, it's about quality and not quantity. So I don't go over 10 on my walking tours either. I want to make sure, like, hey, what did y'all think? And so far, it's been very positive. Everybody says, I got a group that said that it was better than Jefferson. I've never been to Jefferson, but they said it was better than that. And then I had a group that said that it was much better than the one they went to on Mineral Wells because there was like 80 people in the group. So I'm like, well, at least I'm doing something right. And then we hear Mr. Dan honk that very loud horn on the Dr. Pepper truck. And I'm like, okay, guys, we got to go. He's going to lock us out. We got to go right now. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
I got an interesting question then for you that's probably more on the conspiracy side, since you mentioned Dinosaur Valley. The human prints.
I know where you're going. Oh, God. That is the first ever call into the regional director's office I ever had to be a part of. Is that stupid human footprints. So there's a is it Scientologist? No, that's not right. No, a creation museum. It's called the Creation Museum. And they would bring tours. And it was almost like, for me, it was the vein of my existence because I knew who they were when they came. And it was almost like, because we had to walk a fine line because we are wards of the state, basically. So it was one of those things that you just had to smile and shake your head. Yeah, that would be it. That would be it. The footprint in question, I've seen that sucker up close. And to be honest with you, it looks like an Acrocanthosaurus print. And it looks like maybe they just pushed off and moved because it's huge. It's not human sized. And I'm not a scientist. And the way it was explained to me is that these creatures were tons. They weighed tons. And that's the reason why we're able to see these footprints, because of how it was left in the sediment. And it came through because the Paluxy is a very young river. It's one of the youngest. And that's how it was explained to me. And that's why it looks the way it does. Because an Acrocanthosaurus, which is a 3-toed, I can't believe I'm remembering all this. It's been like 7 years.
It's as if you were on another tour.
Come along with me to Dinosaur Valley. So the Acrocanthosaurus is a three-toed. It's one of those that stands up on its two legs, and it kind of looks like a raptor almost. And cleaning those suckers out is really hard because they've got like the claws, and when it digs into and it leaves like this pocket.
Mhm.
And when you clean the dinosaur tracks, you have to get in there real good and wash it out. And people are like, "Oh, the dinosaur tracks are just visible." No, they're not. Park rangers spend all day cleaning those out, and then 2 days later, a rainstorm comes through, puts all that sediment back in there, and we're out there all over again cleaning out those dinosaur tracks.
Wow.
So that's why I know about that footprint, because I've cleaned, but everybody who came through, it was always that footprint. Like, this has to be a human footprint. And I had to like look at that sucker, and it got mapped out, and I saw the mapping. And it, to me, it looks awfully close to the Acrocanthosaurus
Wow.
dinosaur. So,
I like
but
how she
the
thinks we know
Creation
what
Museum
dinosaur
doesn't.
that is.
The what?
I said I like how you like throw out the Latin name of it, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so when you're sitting in front of the regional director of Texas State Parks in trouble because you went along with its human footprints, because I'm kind of sarcastic, and apparently we're not supposed to be sarcastic. So I spent a lot of time. So Sauroposeidon is the big dinosaur footprint that's there, and the Acrocanthosaurus is the three-toed. And it's embedded in my brain because I was in such hot water. And not to engage with the Creation Museum employees, disengaged. So
I'm actually kind of surprised the Creation Church is out there, because that would go against everything they said.
yeah, they have, so if you're want to look, that their museum's actually kind of neat. Like, I had to keep it, I guess it's on the record now. I don't work for them anymore, but I went in because I was intrigued. I wanted to know. They've got a really cool setup in that museum. It's like when you come Park Road, I want to say it's 51. When you come in going towards Dinosaur Valley State Park, it's on your right hand side, and they've spent a lot of money, but they've got some quality. Some of them are just way out there, but they've got some quality setups in there that are actually quite interesting. So if you're ever intrigued, definitely go out there to the Creation Museum.
That's amazing.
Okay. Actually, what's
Yeah.
intriguing me right now is what's behind you on the wall.
So
Like, it looks sciencey, but it looks Mayan, but it looks...
Yes, this is my curtain that my husband absolutely hates. So this was the medium, because he's in the Vikings and I like Art Deco type stuff, and this was the medium that we got.
Nice.
Was my curtain. They kind of look Viking-esque. So
Yeah, they do.
that was the compromise after almost 20 years of being together. This is how we worked. So
Nice.
So what drew you to Cleburne? Or were you always in Cleburne?
well, I grew up in Mansfield. We grew up in both me and my husband grew up in Mansfield, and my husband was a cop, so we moved to Bosque County and lived there. He was a sheriff's deputy for a little bit. And I was coming to Cleburne. I made really good friends with the people in Cleburne. I was a 911 dispatcher at Johnson County for about a year when I went to school. And then I went to work for state parks, went away for about almost 6 years working for them. I was superintendent at Whitney State Park while I was operations training at Dino. and also about to become assistant superintendent at Abilene State Park. So I had 3 state parks,
Oh my God.
but yeah, it was a lot. And Whitney State Park was underwater, which they're always underwater. But so we came back here. Well, after I lost my mom, I was lost. So I needed grounding, and we moved back to Mansfield, and it was crazy expensive to live in Mansfield. And we found a house in Cleburne, and I just started reconnecting with my friends, reconnecting with the community, and learning more about the community and everything. And that's kind of why we ended up in Cleburne, because it was cheaper to live in Mansfield, and I felt more grounded here than I did anywhere else.
Nice.
Nice.
So I noticed that you mentioned in your bio a little bit about selecting smaller, more unknown locations to do your investigations. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So I love ghost adventures and ghost hunters and all of that. And the thing with them is they pumped into these places basically the want, and all the new paranormal teams and everything else, that's where they want to go. If Zach Baggins was there, I want to be there. If the ghost hunters team was there, I want to be there. So my thought process was, I want to go where these big teams have not been. I believe Bollinger, and like I just said, I was in Abilene, and before that got real big, they were having a hard time bringing people out there. It was unknown. So for that being said, I like going to these places that nobody's investigated, just so that I can bring awareness that there are other places out there, because a lot of these places are expensive to go investigate. And some people don't even understand that you don't have to go to a well-known hospital or penitentiary or any of those places. There are tiny hotels you can stay at, and the people are really, really nice, to where you can investigate, and they pretty much give you free reign. We went to Crazy Water Hotel, and it's lesser known than the Baker. And literally, the young lady, she's by herself like all night long. And she ghost hunted with us. Like, she put a little sign up on her thing, and I was like, this is not happening right now, right? And she's like, oh no, this is amazing. I want to be a part of it. So that was really cool. And it was like, there's an 8th floor to that building. And I was talking to, before the maintenance guy left for the day, I was just following him. I was listening to what he had to say, because that's another thing. Maintenance and workers, and that they know the real stories. They're the ones who are cleaning and, not paying attention to what's around them. And he took me down into the basement, and I blindly followed him into the basement, and showed me how the spa was going to look. And when the young lady left for the night, there was another lady who was there who took over, and she didn't have anything to do with, she didn't want to hear what we were doing. She didn't even care. She was like, I don't want to know about it. She's like, I'd rather not. And I'm like, okay. She goes, there was a window open on our floor, and I went down to tell her, like, hey, I would like to shut it, but I don't want to get in trouble. And so she went up the floor with us, and then she's like, we have an 8th floor, right? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, do you want to see it? And I'm like, yes. So that was really cool too. It's a gorgeous place, but everybody I talk to, it's like, the crazy water. I didn't know that was, it was a hospital, it was a hotel, and it was a retirement, because when you look up how many deaths were there, I'm like, how does a hotel have that many deaths? Like, what happened there? A lot did happen there, but nobody knew that it was an actual hotel. They thought it was just a retirement or an apartment complex. And then there's Inn on the River in Glen Rose. The lady who runs it, Pam. She's amazing. But people know more of the Glen next door because it's crazy busy and crazy scary spirits are inside the Glen. But the Inn on the River, that was the best night's sleep. It was almost like they tucked me in and kissed me on the forehead and say, now be a good little ghost hunter and go to sleep. I was so refreshed the next morning. Like, I'm like, what was that? Like, I passed out. It was the best thing ever. And it was a sanitarium, but he used holistic approach. Like, he grew bananas, he had a zoo, everybody was happy, nobody was on drugs, and you get really happy spirits, like, and it's just, but nobody really knows about that. So I wanted to shine a light that there's good spirits that have a story to tell too. So it's the reason why I go and I find off the wall cemeteries, or I go and find, because I want people to understand they don't have to go to these mainstream places, that there are business owners who own these small town businesses that want to connect, and not to say anything. What is that? Is it Haunt USA or Haunted Rooms America? I've spoke with those guys and everything, and they're really nice people, but it's like a business, it's a big business, and it's got a weird corporation vibe to it. And I don't think that that's necessary. Some of it is, if you can do that and they'll plan everything out for you, especially when you're first starting out. But I like to put my TikToks out there, and YouTube and I are having a fight. I can't get my YouTube to work. It's being ridiculous, but I like putting it out there for information as a roadmap, so that people can go back to these businesses, spend money, and get to know the people who have put their heart and soul and their life savings into these businesses. So for me, it's a big thing, because when we were at actually all the hotel, the Inn on the River and the Mineral Wells one, I felt like we were the only ones staying in that hotel that night. Like, there was a couple of people who were there. I guess they were in town for a wedding or something, but literally the whole hotel was ours. And that to me is sad, because everybody, the Baker is the hotel to go see, but the Crazy Water was, when it was built, the Baker was built for their overflow. So now it's flip-flopped, but it's kind of important for me for people to understand that there are tiny little and places you don't have to break into. Honestly, all you have to do is call these people up and say, I'm interested in this. I want to help you in your preservation, and what can I do to help you? Especially big name people, because I'm just a tiny pebble. There's not a lot I can do, but I've had people reach out to me and say, well, how did you hear about this place? What is the background on this place? And all I have to do is give them the name of the person who owns it, because they've done really all the research. And the Flexi on the Inn, each one of those rooms, they have journal entries, like from the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
And I'm talking like life-altering changes. Like one entry was like, I'm in this bed alone, which I haven't been alone in 30 years, but I'm ready for my next adventure. I mean, I'm talking like deep Sally
Wow.
Jesse Raphael stuff. Like this is important. So, and she lets you read all the journals. I'm over here crying and boohooing,
Oh
and
my gosh.
I'm like, this is insane.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
But there's places out there that people just need to, these dying towns, these dying, especially Texas. There are so many dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it
So
was
go ahead.
interesting for me because I was meeting with Amy in the chat group at Granbury at the Hood County Jail. I've been there now 3 times, and it's so much fun to investigate there,
oh
and
yeah.
it's got so much history. And she was like, Jesse James is buried near here, and I was like, wait, what? And she goes, yeah, Jesse James is buried in the Granbury Cemetery. I was like, no way. So I had to go check it out. And I'm like, okay. So I do a little mini investigation there. And so I'm driving through the cemetery. Off to my right, something says, look to your right. And there it says, Davy Crockett's grandson. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. The Crockett's are here too? So then I'm like, all right, let's do a little mini investigation here. And I was like, well, since I talked to the grandson, I got to go talk to the mom. So I drove to Acton Cemetery to talk to the mom
Beautiful
and
cemetery.
grandmother.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like you're saying, it's so amazing how these people of even historical value are in our backyard, but we don't even think about it or realize it.
Mm-mm. No, we don't. And they, like Jesse James, I did like a little thing with, and I know a lot of people like Ghost Tube, a lot of people are back and forth over it. For me, it's too coincidental. But I went over and I was just being, because there's 2 Jesse James graves, and 2 Billy the Kid graves. Well, I
Right.
think there's more Billy Kid graves, but I was like, Jesse the James, what you doing? And it said Jesus Christ, like that, and I was like, okay, all right, this is how we're starting this, huh? So it was an interesting video to say the least, and he basically didn't want me touching the stuff on his grave, and I'm like, okay, so if you're not the real Jesse James, you're definitely very much think you're the real Jesse James. So I'm gonna leave you alone. And then like the Crockett's, that was interesting because it was a weird like healing of almost like heroism, I guess. It's a very, not pompous, it's not a good word for it, but important vibe that I like. If I was standing
Religion.
in front of,
Yeah.
yes, very regal. And because I went the day before we had the investigation at the jail and got all that, and we went to, oh no, did I lose it?
No,
No,
you're
you're still
still
here.
here.
Now you did.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay?
Yep.
These died, so we'll just have to. They had full battery before I started, folks. I don't know what to say.
Actually, I think I know because there's been a few times that I've been, it sounds like paper rustling or conversations happening underneath our conversations.
Man. Oh well. But it was like storm of the century that happened that night, and it was like I watched a barricade walk down the road in front of the jail, and I looked at Amy and I'm like, this is intense. But yeah, that whole, and the jail, they don't get a lot of traction either. And money wise, $75 to rent it, that's a really good deal to be able to sit there and connect and look at the artwork on the walls and everything else. So Granbury is a neat little town for sure.
Yeah. And I actually even found out that it's like when you come in, for me, because I come in from the south, I turn right onto Crockett to go to the jail. Well, right there on the left where you turn right is the Opera House that is also supposed to be haunted.
Yeah.
And I looked at myself and I was like, I have been here 3 times, and this is the first time I've ever noticed the Opera House is right here.
It's an amazing building.
Yeah, that whole place is. I mean, I literally wept when I saw the hotel go up in flames, and I'm like, man, that is a blow to history. Right there is to lose that hotel. But it's an interesting, even on the outskirts of Granbury, there's tiny little suburbs, so to speak, with the cemeteries that is part of their history. And I believe it's Karen. I'm pretty sure it's Karen, but Karen, who runs the jail, that woman is full of knowledge. She has seen every document that they could ever get their hands on. She said she's been working there since '86, I believe.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So when you want to fact check or need to know information, she's definitely the person to chat with. Because I was like, Karen, I don't have enough time in the day to sit here and talk to you, because I could spend hours. But she definitely has a lot of interesting stories that go with the jail and with the surrounding bits of the town. So she knows where everything was, where it was supposed to be, and how it was supposed to be built. So,
and I think she even joins on the ghost hunts too when she's there.
Yeah, that particular night, she was like, "I'll stay in the office," and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." But when the storm hit, her and Bob, I believe, and Bob's an very interesting man too, because I don't put a lot of faith into people right off the bat who say they can see and hear. It takes a bit, but when he can literally point blank explain to me things that I knew and I know I haven't divulged, it's like, okay, this guy's legit. And when my 15-year-old can say he's legit, I have no qualms. Like, I'm like, you can stick around us all night. I don't even care. Like, but him and Karen were outside when the storm hit, and she took us over to the cabin that's inside the house. So she let us check that out that night, and that was very, very nice of her to do. So it was definitely a very full night, and she stays out of the way, kind of like how I try to do on my investigations, but it's kind of hard because you're just kind of listening, like, what's going on up there? Who's talking to them? Who are they talking to? What's going on? Who's doing what? So, but yeah, it was a great experience at the Granbury jail for sure.
Yeah, my favorite is when you get Bob going and he's like, and if you want to talk about paranormal, and he takes off the wall, the little thing of all the badges, he's like, I want you to explain this. There's one missing. This has never been opened. How is there a missing badge? And you can see literally where it was glued.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I really can't. And they keep saying, now, some mediums have said it's buried under the floor, but we're not ripping up the floor. I'm like, I wouldn't rip up that floor either. You ain't putting it back.
No. not in their original form. And that's what, Karen was saying too. And I'm like, I can't explain that. Like, I can't. I want to dig under the floor very bad because that is the part of me. And then part of me is like, don't do that because you're going to mess with the historical. So I felt like Karen was watching me all night to make sure I didn't dig up the floor, just to find if that badge was underneath there. But
See,
we
in
were.
my mind, I'm thinking tunnel from outside underneath.
There, I thought about that too, and I'm like, because when the storm hit, I was like, okay, how thick are these walls? Are we going to be protected if a tornado hits? And I'm like, man, that would take forever to tunnel up underneath this sucker to get that badge. And my daughter's like, are you honestly, we're in a storm of 80-mile-per-hour winds, and you're trying to figure out how to get that badge from underneath there? I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, right on. Oh my gosh.
So where are some of the other places that you really get a lot of activity that you're like, man, I wish I could get more people to come out to?
Oh man. Well, so there's, of course, you've got your normal, like, and it's so funny because it's America's most haunted hotel. You've got your Eureka Springs, the Crescent, which if I could work there, I would wash dishes. I don't even care because, like, the Crescent, something calls to me at the Crescent. Every time I go, I feel like I have to stay there. And the Galvez. And the Galvez, they both claim that they're America's, most haunted hotels. So they're on a completely different level. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of drama, but they have people who churn through there. There have been two places that I have been to that have the same level, if not more. And I don't know if it's because they don't get a lot of visitors, so they're super talkative and they want to be known. There is a cemetery, our cemetery here in Cleburne. They were dug up twice and buried 3 times. So they don't get a lot of visitors. They're super talkative. Yeah, he's doing the math. So the history of it is, so the town of Wardville, when it was moved, Cleburne was deemed the county seat. And so the town of Wardville, it was dammed up to create a lake. So they said, come get your loved ones. We're moving them over into Cleburne or they're going to go underwater. Some got left, which is why Lake Pat Cleburne is pretty freaking haunted. There's the Lady of the Lake who walks around the lake. And Cleburne State Park also has its share. But the ones who did dig up their loved ones, they hauled them over to where the old high school is now. They buried them there. Well, then they found out that Native Americans were buried there. Well, we can't have that. I can't have my auntie being buried next to this guy. Like, these are bad people. I don't want them next to these people. We're going to dig them back up. So they dug them all back up and they hauled them on the other side of town and buried them again. So they were dug up twice and buried 3 times.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'll admit I was doing the math because I heard buried 3 times, dug twice, and I'm thinking, wait, didn't you have to be dug to be buried the first time? But I didn't hear the dug up part, and so I was like, oh, yeah, that explains it.
Yeah. So, and then the 4-legged woman is buried there too. So, yes, the 4-legged woman, Myrtle was her name. And she is also buried in our cemetery, and not a lot of people know that Myrtle is buried there. So her husband put cement on top of her grave so people wouldn't try to dig her up. Yeah, she's another spirit that comes across pretty regularly. And then there's one of the hanging gentlemen that he comes across, the one I believe is innocent, and his name is Jonathan, and he comes across a lot. He even follows me on my tours, and he's just very, he wants to be known, and a lot of, I'm innocent, and now it's weird. It's like it'll come across my thing, and I know it's him because of how the verbiage is, even when it comes across my voice box, and it's like, oh, it's you. How do you do? And I'm like, how do you do, Jonathan? So he's a kind spirit. He's very, very nice. But then there's, in the chambers, I've never really ran from a situation before, but our cemetery, it's 3 cemeteries in one. And in the chambers, there's something there that some nights, and not all nights, but some nights you can definitely feel a very menacing, what are you doing here type situation. And I don't want to go down the skinwalker route, but I have been told that, like, what they've seen, like somebody on my team has seen, it doesn't move. Now, there are cows on the property next to us, but this thing runs pretty quick, and it kind of, it's like cat-like, but it kind of stands up a little bit. And I've put my field cameras up several times, and I haven't caught anything on those, but visually, I've had team members who have caught things out of the corner of their eye, or yellow orbs. I learned very quickly what a yellow orb meant, and to pay attention to them. So that cemetery, chambers, and the Cleburne Memorial side, those are the 2 sides that have a lot of activity. And then the other one is over there in Brea Vista. It's called the Kyle Bullard Cemetery, and that one has had claims of skinwalkers. And I just wanted to see. I wanted to see what's. I went during the day. I did not go in because I don't play games with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was very strong, because even during the day, it was like I had my phone yanked out of my hands, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely an active place. It's good to know you. I won't come back and bother you. I'm just going to document that this is what's going on here, and then
have a nice day.
Yeah, have a nice day. Anatok is another one. Anatok Cemetery is, I've never had things thrown at me before, and it's pea gravel. Like, I'm like, and it's not, it was like at my car, and I'm like, dude, you can hit me all you want, but stop throwing rocks at my car. And I almost left Robbie. Like, I was like, okay, we're done. My car's gonna have dents all in it, and you're jacking around taking pictures. I'm done. So I did get a light anomaly from there. It's on my Instagram, and I just can't explain it. Everybody's like, well, is it a car? I'm like, well, it's Hagrid flying his motorcycle if it's a car, because it's way off the and it's not high enough to be a plane. So I'm like, I can't explain that. So yeah, I said 2 places. I really meant 3, but those 3 cemeteries, those have impressed me more so than the 2 hotels, the Crescent and the Galvez, around here.
That's amazing.
So you mentioned the yellow orb. Can you explain that to those that aren't familiar with what a yellow orb is?
Mhm.
Yeah, so yellow orb means caution. And there have been, I have caught it. I take a picture and I've caught the yellow orb and I've ignored it. And we were at another cemetery and I can't remember its name. I have video on my Instagram, but it's out there past Kyle Bullard. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's just like one of those little family plots off of a dirt road. But I caught this yellow orb and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's yellow. And I was going to go Google it, but there's no service. And so as I'm fighting with my phone through my Ghost Tube Vox, which does the voices and stuff, it said caution. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm going to go turn the lights off on my car so that we can leave or so that we can go dark so we can get pictures and stuff. So I walked back, my 15-year-old daughter and our other team member, Jacob, is in the cemetery. And I go to my car to turn off the lights because this whole time I got the lights on so we could see and set up. And it was like Amazon, like warfare. There was red velvet ants on one side of my car and like these hornet bee wasp on the other side of my car. And red velvet ants do not like congregate like that. I have never seen that in my life. And they were covering my car. So I start screaming, cussing and telling them to get back in the car, and we were leaving. And we get halfway down the road. I want to make sure they're not coming into my car. And they're all gone. They're not there. So when we got to a place to where I could look up the colors of orbs so that I could be smarter about this, yellow, which I would think would be a happy orb, is not a happy orb. But red, I would think would be like caution or bad or anything like that. But no, it's yellow. Yellow is the get the heck out of there. Something bad's about to happen. Yeah, and every time I've caught a yellow orb on my screen, something crazy happens. And it's never good. It's like nature's coming after me or something breaks or somebody gets hurt. So I pay, out of all of them, I know a couple of the colors and what they mean because I've seen them and I look them up, but that yellow one, like it's embedded in my head, like don't mess with it. If you take an instant picture and you look down at it and see that yellow orb, be very careful as you're progressing through because something might end up happening. It's a warning basically to you.
Jeez, that's good to know. Good to know.
Yep. So we're actually a little over our hour. Are you needing to go, or
No, I'm good for
questions? Do we have questions still coming?
I've got a little time if we've got questions.
Carla?
I'm running out. I mean, I know I got a ton of them for her when I see her, but you, Michael?
Ooh, tattoo. What's the tattoo?
Oh, so this is a weeping willow, and it's got my parents' initials in it.
Oh.
For my mom, when my mom passed, my dad paid for my tattoo so that I had a memory. And the weeping willow means a lot, strength and all that. But her favorite singer was Patsy Cline, and her favorite song has that weeping willow part in it. So that's why I settled on that.
Very nice.
Coincidentally is mine and my husband's initials as well. We didn't plan that, I promise.
Sure you didn't.
I need to marry somebody that's
with a C. With a C.
Oh my gosh.
So what's your favorite equipment to use?
My Paralight. My Paralight's my favorite thing to use because I can see from far away, and it's very it's not the one with all the levels. It just does the one. It was the cheaper one, the mini. But I like it more because it's like one color, and I can't deny, what color it was. Okay, that just went off. And it's easy to use, and it's been easier for the spirits to use as well. My least favorite is the ghost boxes. Like I bought from Paratronics, I believe. Paid good money for this like high-end ghost box, thinking it was going to help me better because I didn't like the SB7 or the SB11. But from what I've been told, because I can sort of, like I can hear footsteps or I can hear voices if I pay attention, it's that noise, and it messes with my head, and that's why I don't like them. So, yeah, anything that does that psh, 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 psh sound, I can't use. But my favorite is definitely, so future-wise equipment that I absolutely want that I've gotten to play with, but I can't afford right now is the Eddy. I want that sucker so bad because I can hook it up to the computer. I can get like printouts and, have all the documentation. That is like my holy grail. Like I want that piece of equipment so flipping bad. But it's a wish list item.
Well, I actually have news for you, Tracy. I have a friend in Scotland that makes equipment, and he was on my other show, Paranormal Versus, and we were discussing the SB7 and how the white noise, creates all these problems. So he's working on a spirit box where the white noise is very soft and like an undertone, so you can hear the EVPs and the voices that come over.
Yeah.
And we're even he's looking at putting it on like wheels so you can like wheel it around with you so you don't have to constantly be like, if you're in a hurry, go pick it up. That we're trying to design he's working on a system where it'll follow you.
That's amazing. Like I can't even, like, that dude is smart, because like that for us who are sensitive of hearing and stuff, that's pretty gnarly right there. Like I would be the first in line. I would bump my Eddy down just so I could have something that would follow me that would talk. So,
I'm not sure if he's going to do the SB7 remote controlled, but we were saying like, having like cameras and stuff on a remote control and EVP recorders where they can. And he even was saying he's looking at building like a remote control truck or car that'll have cameras and sensors on it and recording. So like if there's like a hole in the wall that you can't go, it's not big enough for you, you can drive the car in, investigate in there, and then bring it back. And we're like, oh man, we were having so much fun talking about designing equipment on that episode.
That would be so, because like that would be, I made the mistake of, do y'all remember Teddy Ruxpin and Cricket?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the mistake of, because the tape player that's in the back, it also, like, you can record and you can play and everything. And I made the dire mistake of thinking that that it would be fine. I'm a child of the 80s. The movie toys really messed me up. And when Cricket starts like doing gibberish at you, I was like, okay, you're going on eBay right now. Like I can't have you anymore. So those Boo Bears and all of that stuff, they were definitely designed by people who have never seen those kind of movies. So, yeah, that's it's interesting to see what people come up with, because they're trying to get around different technology. So
Right.
I'm really interested to see, because if I can get like a go-kart that has all of my equipment on it and just wheel it around, that would be amazing.
Yeah. The other piece we were talking about, I'll just say real quick, was like the motion puck and the shadow sensors that when it goes off, if you don't have a camera on it, you don't know it went off. And so
Right?
I told them you need to develop something that's got like music to it, or like a certain music to a certain quadrant or a certain sound. And he's like, I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were talking about putting on a wheel at first, and putting on wheels to go around is to have this shadow device that would just alert you when something's coming from some direction. And you could hear it, so
Man.
you know automatically where to turn and start to look.
What room to be in?
See, now that I can get behind. So when he finishes all this stuff, I need to know a website or something to be able, because I've piecemealed some stuff together, and I have done some redneck ingenuity to it. Okay. Like those strips that go around like your TVs and stuff, and their motion sensor. I hook those up in the hallways and stuff. And I have it's called a Spybot. You can get it at Walmart for like $5, and it's for little kids, for their little brothers to stay out of the room. But let me tell you, the kid spirits absolutely love it, but it scares the crap out of you every time it goes off because it's so loud. But I've put some stuff together that I'm like, okay, well, this ought to work, and it works just like this. I'm not an engineer. I'm actually an English major. So there's no way. But I can redneck some stuff together because of working in state parks. I could definitely put stuff together. So
Excellent.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's in Scotland, so it's kind of
Man.
hard to. It's like, yeah. Let me see how much that's going to cost me to have that
to ship over here.
ship
No
it.
joke.
Sure. Right on.
Yeah, so let's see. I'm like, normally I have so many questions in my head, but I think we've already answered all of them.
This has been an awesome interview. We are so glad you came on.
Well,
Yeah.
I feel so privileged for y'all too, because when you reached out, I was like, do they got the right person? Did they?
Yes, we got the right person.
Did they? Did
your
they
name's
know?
Tracy Mays, right?
Yeah, pretty. The last time I checked, yeah.
That'd be really awkward if at the end of the interview it's like, oh wait, you're not who we were supposed to be interviewing?
Oops. I'm sure that'll happen at some point.
Yeah.
No,
but yeah, no, y'all have been amazing.
Great having you on.
Yeah, and y'all have been amazing. Your intro is, I think, more professional than I've ever seen. It started going off, and I'm like, what have I signed up for? Like, this is going to be intense. I don't know how well I'm going to do on this.
Actually, that was our short version. And so a funny story about that is Carla developed it in PowerPoint, and I couldn't get it into this program so it would run like it runs. And so we thought, well, we'll shrink it down. And so we took one segment out, and it still was refusing to run through. And I'm like, what is going on? And the next morning, I wake up after Carl and I were working on it for like, 5-6 hours trying to figure out what to do. I took it from 1080 to 720, and everything worked just fine. I was like,
just shoot me.
Golly.
It was just one of those where it was, as the slides were transitioning, the music needed to accompany. So it's like having to put like, it's like 0.5 seconds for this slide because then the music transitions and then it's just like hours.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Well, it was good. I mean, I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like,
So the funny thing is, though, so yours was the shorter version. The longer version, the slide we took out was black-eyed children.
oh,
So there's a slide that goes by with black-eyed children, and sometimes people are like, "Yeah, I want to talk about that," and other people are like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna change channels now."
it's like, that's not, yeah, that's creepy. That's super creepy. Because this last investigation we did at the Dillon last group I had through, she caught like this shadow figure, and it was when she was messing with her phone, and I replayed that and slowed it down, and I couldn't explain it, like, and it was weird because she was up there by herself and nothing was behind her in the hallway, and all night long. When I say it's getting more intense up there, I don't know if it's because there's also an antique store downstairs as well. I don't know if they brought something crazy in or if it's just the people I'm bringing in, but it was so intense, like calling her some interesting names. It's aggressive and it's dark and it's like not demonic or anything. Like, I think it's just a really pissed off spirit. I think he's like likes to be dark and likes to scare people. But I've footage wise, like my mouth dropped open because I had that feeling up there, like the fight or flight vibe. And I've only gotten it once before when I heard like rustling coming at me. But the whole like feeling of you need to leave, and that was about 1:45, and we stopped about 2. I've had other groups stay till 8 a.m. And it's gone on pretty much all night for them, but this past weekend was interesting and if you look at the video, I think I put it on my Facebook page, but I did a still shot, which again, I'm not good with IT, so I kind of had to just like freeze frame it. But you see the head and you see the shoulders. There's nothing in that hallway and everything was dark. So there's no way to cast a shadow on it. And she was messing with her phone. So it's this weird, like, her phone's going down because she's about to turn her phone off. And that's when she caught the shadow in the hallway. So, it's ramped up. We've had somebody got scratched. I wasn't up there with them, but they did get, and they seemed legit people. Like she seemed legit shaken. Like she was shaking, and you could see the 3 scratches, but it was 2 sets of 3, kind of like scratch. So she was pretty shaken about that. And then I had somebody get bit, but it looked like little kid bites. And then it was gone. So it looked like maybe a 7-8-year-old. And I'm pretty certain that was Ethan because he can get naughty at times, but he's not a bad spirit. He's just naughty. But it's ramped up quite a bit, and I've had to have some conversations with the spirits. I'm like, well, come on, guys, we have got to have a come to Jesus meeting because nobody's going to want to come up here and talk to y'all if you're going to be slapping them and biting them and pushing them down the stairs.
Well,
like nobody,
not like throwing out the welcome mat.
Oh yeah, man. Like, y'all need to stop this. Like, I was like, no touching. Don't you touch them. Don't just keep your hands to yourself. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I just really, it's ramped up quite a bit. So I don't have anybody scheduled for this weekend. Is that question for me? Did y'all
Yep.
pop
It
that?
is.
Oh,
That's
okay. I'm like, hi, Pam. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm in Cleburne. That's where I'm located. Cleburne, Texas. So, I don't. It's geared up quite a bit, but he brings in new antiques all the time, and he collects them. Like the body, I call it the body bay, but the body bay where they bring the bodies in, all his antiques are lined up over there, and each antique has a energy attached to it. So every time he gets a new one in, and he doesn't tell me, but what he does the next morning, he goes, "So, you got anybody new up there today?" And I'm like, "Did you bring something else into this building?" Because
Oh,
it's making me tired. So, but it has gotten very busy, or busier. But then there's some nights too, it's very docile. They don't, you'll hear walking and they want to talk to you. But then there's other nights that it's just something's off and you can feel it in the air. And then when it leaves, it's this weird, like you're walking in the middle of the day and nothing is wrong. So, yeah, I don't know. And it's called my name before. And it's like, it's never followed me home because I straight up tell it, you can't come home with me. Would love to come to Texas.
She's from Indiana. She's
okay. But it's I've had a spirit from up there come home, and it started the washing machine, and it was about 2 a.m. and my husband's like, "Did you bring something home with you?" And I said, "No, I didn't bring anything home with me." He's like, "The washing machine just started." And I was like, "Well, good. At least somebody's doing the washing around here." And
yeah, I know. I'm like, you got a helpful spirit. Why are you complaining?
Why are you being mean to the spirit? He goes, "I just don't want you bringing anybody else," because my house has quite a bit of activity. Anyway, but he's like, "You need to start telling it you can't take a free ride to the house." I'm like, "But he's trying to do the laundry." So, yeah, the Dillon Funeral Home is definitely a really cool place to investigate, and everybody has a different experience. But from the different groups, they say there's residual, but they also say that there's intelligence too. And for me, it's definitely a mixture of the both. People doing their day to day, but then there's also something there that definitely communicates negative and positive.
I can't wait.
Yeah, Pam, come to Texas. I mean, everything's down here. But so why don't we take a little bit so that you can explain what you got going on? Because I know you probably have investigations coming up, but you also have a Paracon coming up.
Yes. So Paracon is September 30th. We have 5 locations who have agreed to allow us to do VIP investigations, which are a separate, you pay and you get, only 10 people are allowed to be in each location. We have Dillon Funeral Home. We have Jimmy's, which was a bordello, saloon, and a gambling hall all in one, and then it turned into a funeral home. Then we have the Rugged Man. We also have the Garden of Eating and Heritage House. So all of those locations have agreed for us to open the doors for the investigations for that night. But during the day, we'll have vendors who are selling equipment. I'm hoping to bring in places like the jail, the Hood County Jail, so that they can promote their investigations there at their location, so that we can ramp up their visitation. We'll also have speakers. Robbie from Unknown Ventures, he is heading all of that with the speakers. The main goal is education. Education. Robbie is amazing when it comes to videography. He does a lot of urban exploration. Amy is a spiritual guide, so she talks more about grounding yourself and protection. My knowledge is more so of basically doing your own tour and also helping the historical people around you help build investigations there in your own small hometown. So that's more of what I would talk about. So I've also, and I'm hoping it launches by next month, but it's a website that will have like a scavenger hunt type thing to where you can go to the different haunted locations. It gives you the history, kind of like a geocache type thing. But you get to experience what happened there at those locations, and what kind of hauntings do happen at those locations. And it also, if you visit those locations, you get points to where it goes into like a bigger giveaway type thing. Like your name goes into it for a big giveaway. I don't know what yet. We're still working on that. There's a couple of possibilities, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's supposed to be a pretty good, we're working on possibly music, but I'm still having to work with the city on that. I don't think they want a Disturbed concert going on downtown. But I mean, I wouldn't mind a Disturbed concert downtown, but just putting that out there. If anybody knows Disturbed, I'm good with them. It's just that the town might not be. But yeah, it's going to be a really good night. The Liberty Hotel right there, it's the third floor is super haunted there. So people who want to stay there, definitely stay there. And so that's going to be, I'm really feeling positive vibes that it's just going to be a very positive, even if we don't have a lot of people, it's going to be a positive experience for everybody. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Investigation wise, I run investigations out of the Dillon Funeral Home, which is now Dillon Depot. So they're all basically private investigations, minimum was 2 people, max 10 people. And it's $60 a person for 9p to 2a. And if you do 9p to 8 a.m., it's $100 a person. And we do historic walking tours beforehand, and that's all included. So it's a lot going on, a lot of movement, and but everything's very positive.
It's going to be exciting.
It is, and I'm just a little curious because we all know, like you said, 2 minimum. It's like people always will say yes, and then at the last minute something comes up. So if someone was to show up just by themselves, would they still be able to keep the date, or would you make them reschedule?
No, I haven't made them reschedule yet. I had one lady who, her friend, I guess something came up and couldn't be there, so she was by herself. And I'm like, okay, either A, you can go up there by yourself, or B, I can go with you. So usually that's when me and my crew get to tag along, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, that gives me a chance to, even with the other groups that come in, like I tell them, if you want me to stay out of your way, I'll be downstairs. But I'm very happy to lean over your shoulder and drool all over your stuff and participate. So it's up to you. But yeah, we had one person that their friend, last minute, because I take a deposit of one person. So last minute, that other person decide not to show up. And she's sitting there and we're staring at each other. And she's just like, you know, I'm like, we'll go upstairs with you. It's not a big deal. But if you want to be by yourself, I understand. No, that's okay. You can join me.
Come on down.
Like, we got you. You won't be by yourself, I promise.
Oh. Right on.
All right.
Oh my gosh. Now it is late.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
But it's
Again,
fun.
thank you so much, Tracy.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for having me. This has been a great experience. So
Look forward to many more.
yes, and I look forward to having both of you at the Dillon Depot to experience how amazing that place is.
I can't wait.
Count on it. It's going on my list. Actually, it went on my list when I saw that video of it you put up.
Which one?
Yeah.
Their walkthrough where you were showing like
Oh yeah. I like to do I go upstairs, I tell Dan, I'm like, hey, I'm going upstairs. Well, why do you want to go upstairs? Well, I gotta get video, Dan. He goes, I'll never understand you. And I'll be like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm just waiting for a raccoon to jump out of the rafters at me while I'm on live, because that's a possibility too.
Oh my gosh. That would be fun.
oh, that's funny.
Alrighty.
So, all right, Carla. So where are we at now?
We are at 10:30.
So
It's time to wrap it up.
Yep.
Thanks to all our viewers. It's been great. And again, for Tracy, you're showing up.
We do
Thank you for not blocking me or locking me in the waiting room. So
Oh no, that's reserved for us when we get out of hand.
time out.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Amy. Yay.
So join us next week as we have Allison Jorlin joining us. And as I mentioned last week, we will be, if I can find it, there it is, introducing and replaying our brand new outro that my cousin put together for us. So hope you all enjoy it, and we will see you next week.
Bye, Tracy.
You have just listened to the energy that surrounds us with your hosts, Michael Koff and Carla Norris. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.